At this stage, you're probably thinking that you'd never be capable of inflicting human rights abuses on another human being. But you'd be wrong. The ability of ordinary people to do evil acts is a part of our psychology. Simply by the roles they were asked to play, either prisoner or guard, Professor Zimbardo discovered that he could create his very own tyranny, and it took just 5 days.
On day one, these groups had everything in common. They were identical. It was just by a flip of the coin that they were guards or prisoners. Within a matter of a few days, there was nothing similar about them. And what you saw was the emergence of two classes of people, the all-powerful and the totally powerless. What we saw was a gradual escalation of aggression, of hostility of the guards against the prisoner, which built each day over the successive days. Not only was it physical aggression, hitting the prisoners, there was verbal aggression, abusing them. They began to use the prisoners as their plaything, as their toys, having them engage in activities which were of a sexual nature.
You be the bride of Frankenstein, and you be Frankenstein. I want you to walk over here like Frankenstein and say that you love 2093.
Instead of Frankenstein walk.
Walk like Frankenstein.
We ask you to walk like you.
I love you, 293.
Get up close. Get up close.
I love you, 293. I love you, 293.
You smile, 293.
The guards became increasingly sadistic, particularly at night when they thought the cameras were off. 5 days into a 14-day study, the experiment had to be stopped. It took an outsider to recognize the human rights abuses that were going on.
The Stanford Prison Study is a microcosm of the development of a tyrannical regime. That we did it in just a week. Typically, tyrannical regimes might take longer, but you're talking just weeks or months, where essentially you're transforming a democracy. You're transforming people who care about one another, who have compassion, where right dominates over might. And you're changing all of those values. You're getting people to suspend their morality, to gradually begin to blindly obey authority, to comply with rules that don't fit their basic values or beliefs, and to begin to conform, to begin to behave as a unit, as the communists, as the Nazis, as the fascists, to take on this group identity, which then dominates all of their thinking.
Thank you, 416.
These are the behaviors that culminate in our step 5, extermination, or the terrible euphemism, ethnic cleansing. What happened in the Stanford prison experiment brings to mind the stories from Rwanda, Burma, and the Omaska concentration camp in Bosnia. There, pupils and teachers from the same school became either torturer or victim.
The whole thing was so personal because these crimes against us were committed by our neighbors, former schoolmates, former teachers, former doctors. At the beginning, actually they didn't dare look into our eyes because, well, not all of them, some of them felt ashamed, I feel, because of the whole situation. But it's very interesting, once they started actually carrying out executions, not only that they became so violent, they became so thirsty for our blood that it's something I still can't understand. This transformation that can happen in such a short space of time. How is it possible that your community, people that you know so well, people that you think knew you so well, could turn on you, and kill you for no reason whatsoever?
Former Yugoslavia was torn apart by Serb aggression. Serbia attacked Croatia. The Croats and the Serbs turned on the Bosnian Muslims. The nation was at war with itself. Whole towns disappeared overnight, like the thriving Muslim village of Ahmici.
As I drove through Ahmici, I noticed that it must have looked like any normal village. There were plants in windows. There were curtains at at those windows. There were cars parked outside drives. There were kennels. There were television dishes pointed at the sky. It must have been normal, except it wasn't. Instead, the houses were gutted, the windows were broken. There was not one sound. It was eerie. The mosque had lost its minaret. The minaret had been toppled by explosives, but it pointed at the sky at a crazy angle, rather like a rocket. So I had the impression of a community that was like the United Kingdom at one time, totally dislocated by an event that had recently happened there. And of course the horror of it hadn't even started. We've got to find out what it is that makes normal people behave in such a foul way.
People ask me, is it possible that something like that could happen here in Britain? And I say, much faster than you can think.
A 250,000 people died. Those who survived, albeit with the scars of war, struggled to rebuild their lives. Some who believed they were lucky sought refuge here in Britain. How have we responded? Elements of the press quickly turned them into a new out-group, just like the brown eyes in Jane Elliott's Exercise. How ironic that they find themselves back on our step one on the road to tyranny.
I believe that refugees are entitled to the same rights as everyone else, and in fact I think it's even more important that they should be afforded the same rights and dignity as other people, because so many of them have suffered persecution and torture in their own countries, and for them to come here and for the process of dehumanisation to be going on, I think is a terrible indictment of our society.
It's been a terrifying journey. But the human behaviour that allows us to commit such atrocities is the very same behaviour that can lead to supreme personal sacrifice. And the power of the group can be used for good as well as bad. The recent events in Serbia could be interpreted as a step back from tyranny. What seems to have been a people's revolution has ousted the tyrannical regime of Milosevic. But it's still too early to know if the new democracy will last.
I believe the people in the Balkans are just like us. Put the circumstances like there were in the Balkans at the time, I'm quite sure we would go down the same road.
There is no country in the world where human rights abuses do not occur. There is no country in the world which can claim to have a completely clean record. And the best countries are those which open themselves up the most to scrutiny and allow people to express their dissent and their opposition to anything the government may be doing.
For me, the bottom line message is that we could be led to do evil deeds. And what that means is to become sensitive to the conditions under which ordinary people can do these evil deeds, what we have been demonstrating throughout this program, and to take a position of resisting tyranny at the very first signs of its existence.